This product is to me nothing less than legendary. Because think about it, Aline, how do we present a physician? If you'd look up on Shutterstock, or if you look at the emoji, if you look at an emoji of a doctor, it is with a stethoscope, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's just throw it all away because this is done for. I mean, the stethoscope is out. We have something entirely new, so we need to invent a new emoji of a doctor.
Exactly, that's true.
Welcome to the Healthyism podcast, a panel discussion on innovations in health and self-care. Every week, a panel of experts discuss the positive changes that are shaping our health and happiness. And for this discussion, we have, back again, calling in from Barcelona, our digital health connector, Aline Noizet.
Hola.
Hey, welcome to have you back. My name is Christophe Jauquet. I am a health business expert, author, and professional keynote speaker. And this is a special edition of the Healthyism podcast because both Aline and I, we were invited at Frontiers Health in Berlin, right?
Exactly.
It's a conference which is mainly on digital health and everything that is changing in the healthcare scene. And it's one of the conferences you've been telling me that I need to go to, even if I wasn't invited to speak. Luckily, I was invited to speak this time, but it's one of the conferences you say, you really need to go there. This is a really good conference, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of my favorites.
Why do you like it so much? Is it, could you tell that? Is it something that you can describe why it is so good?
Well, I was thinking about it last week. It's hard to describe. You have to really live it. There's something very special about the conference. Someone said, and I think it's a good way of describing the conference. There was no difference between like startups, entrepreneurs, corporations, just a bunch of people sharing a common passion around digital health being in the same room. And I think that's what makes it very special. And the size, it's not very big. It's like very family-like. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. And what is also very remarkable, you describe it actually really well. And I think one of the reasons for that is that it's a good balance. I mean, it's not like there's a ton of startups and only a few entrepreneurs or a few, pharma companies. It's really, really balanced out. And I really think we have the right people there, and everybody talks to everybody. It's, I just say, a family feeling.
And I think what I like also is that it's quite international. You have people from all across the world really bringing their expertise and point of view, and that also adds to the conversations.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I was expecting maybe a little bit more out of balance Europe present, but there were a lot of people from the States, actually, way more than I expected. Fully agree. Now, we did see a lot of healthyisms, and I think in this podcast, the purpose is to briefly go through it. I think from my side, I want to talk about the Healthy Cities or the Cities for Better Health by Novo Nordisk. I saw something which is called Medibus, which I liked a lot. And the ultra famous, maybe, Decadu as well. This is one of the things that I want to bring up here. Anything you wanted to bring up?
What I would like to talk about ChatGPT for patients. There was also a nice presentation about cardio for cities, so maybe linked to what you also mentioned, and talk to direct-to-patient models.
Oh, yeah, the new ones from Lilly and Pfizer as well. Cool. Which were the ones that maybe stood out the most when you think back at the conference that took place last week?
So something that I like a lot about Frontiers is that they always start their conferences and even the 2 days of conferences by a session focused on patients. And that was the case again this year. And the second, there was a topic that I like a lot, which is drug-repurposing. So there was a company called Evericure that was on stage. And it's funny because the CEO was presenting the company and he was talking about his friend who was actually the reason why they founded the company. So he got sick, he got diagnosed with a disease, and there was not a treatment for him. And he nearly died, I think, 5 times. And finally, they identified like a drug that could help him, but that was not designed for that disease. And that's how they started the company. And I realized that the patient they were talking about, the co-founder, David, is actually, I've followed him on social media for many years. I just didn't realize that he was the one. But the drug repurposing is something I'm really passionate about, and we really see an impact with AI. And for instance, COVID, one of the first treatments that was discovered was actually using AI. So you look at the disease, you look at the drugs available on the market, and you match them. And I think that's really amazing for like rare disease patients who are waiting for a drug. And also if you think of the drugs who are sitting on shelf. So that was one of my main highlights, really.
Yeah, I like it. And I think in my previous life, you as well, by the way, we both worked in pharmaceuticals. And one of the jobs at a certain moment that I had was looking at all the products kind of lost their peak sales, but still were very valuable molecules. And we always were thinking about how can we repurpose it? And it was a very, very difficult exercise. And indeed, as you say, I mean, now if you look around us, with the use of AI, it's easier to quickly do some analysis on where it could potentially work, and then get it through the necessary phases of approval, of course.
And the impact is huge, right? Because there are drugs that are already validated, but can just be repurposed for something else. Yeah. And maybe...
Go ahead.
Sorry, on those lines, the other thing that I liked a lot, so that was day 2. And day 1, we started with a big bang with e-patient Dave. So Dave, I've known him for many years, like since I started in that industry, really, because I was organizing the... Yeah. Because he was always coming to the Health 2.0 conferences in San Francisco with his doctor. So I've been following him, and it's really nice to still see him. I think he's a great patient advocate, very, very, very positive. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I haven't met Dave prior to Frontiers Health, and obviously I know him. I've been following him for 10, 15 years as well. I think it was remarkable 15 years ago. And when you told me that I needed to talk to him, because I actually missed the presentation because I had another meeting in the morning, I couldn't see him. But when you told me, like, go talk to Dave, and I was like, yeah, but do I have to really? I mean, isn't he a little bit too old? I mean, because the man's 74, I guess, something in his 70s.
Yeah.
And so he told me, yeah, just go talk to him. He's amazing. And so I did follow your suggestion. I invited him into a separate room, and I had a conversation with him. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
My name's Dave DeBroncard. I live outside Boston. I'm a cancer survivor. My nickname on the internet is ePatient Dave, which is tightly related to how I survived cancer. The concept of an e-patient is somebody who's empowered, engaged, equipped, enabled. And due to a strange combination of circumstances, I wrote a blog post that landed me on the front page of the Boston Globe in 2009, and people started inviting me to Washington to talk about what the heck an empowered patient would do if they could look at their medical records. And since then, it's been something like 750 speeches in 26 countries, and I did the opening keynote here yesterday at Frontiers Health, and it was terrific. What an audience.
Yeah, it was a very good session. I mean, the whole 2 days was amazing, right? In Frontiers Health. And indeed, I know you as ePatient Dave. I came across you when I was still working in pharma before I became a keynote speaker. And I was very much enthusiastic, as I like to say, about the drive that you bring and the vision that you bring of making sure that the patient has more power and that we need to listen to the patient. Was that also what your talk was about yesterday on stage?
Yes, and as they say. So I certainly was talking about empowered patients, but in particular, the talk that they asked me to give was titled "The Dawn of Patient Autonomy."
Autonomy.
Now, autonomy, like an autonomous car, autonomy is somebody who can pursue their own goals without somebody guiding them. And that has been, to a large extent in medicine, that's not possible because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, and so on. But there is this breakthrough of artificial intelligence, things like ChatGPT, that some of the patients I know are starting to use, not to replace doctors, but to radically ramp up their own abilities.
Yeah. We used to talk about, Dr. Google.
Yeah.
I think AI will be Dr. Google on steroids, or even a whole hospital of Dr. Googles.
So actually, that's a great point, because what really irritated a lot of doctors when I first started doing this work was, some of them had been trained that it was their sacred responsibility, and I'm not talking about arrogant jerks. I'm talking that had been trained that it was their sacred responsibility to know stuff that patients don't know.
I think it's even in the oath of Hippocrates, right? The patient should not always be in the known, I think.
I'm not an authority and I'm not going to guess.
Yeah.
My area of focus, though, is, see, what I want to do, I don't want to overthrow the medical establishment. I want to improve the net outcome of the doctor-patient relationship.
I get it.
You can do that partly by increasing doctor skills and developing new treatments, but you can also do that without putting additional burden on the doctors by increasing the patient's abilities.
Yeah, and autonomy, probably.
Well, eventually, now there's a huge difference. You mentioned Dr. Google. Sure, I can get a bunch of information by Googling that I didn't have before, but everybody knows there's garbage on the internet.
A lot.
I'm fond of saying I met my wife on the internet in 1999
You did?
on Match.com.
You did?
I did.
Oh, really?
I did. But before I met her, I went through some suboptimal search results.
So you're e-husband, Dave, as well.
I will try mentioning that to my wife and see what she thinks. Anyway, the idea of, so Google gave us access to information. What we're finding is that AI does something similar, but it's radically different because it gives us access to clinical thought.
Yeah.
All right. It's pretty widely known among some audiences that last year, 3 different LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity, I think, all got passing grades on the medical licensing exam. It's gotten radically more extreme this year. Scott Gottlieb, the former director of the FDA, and a journalist fed 5 different LLMs a selection of 50 questions from the level 3 medical licensing exam. Now, in order to pass this and become a doctor, a student has to get a grade of 60.
Yeah.
The average doctor,
83?
the average doctor gets 75.
Okay.
ChatGPT got 98%.
98.
Now, so when people worry, wait a minute, why are you asking ChatGPT medical questions? On average, it is more likely to have the right answer to difficult questions than the average doctor.
Yeah.
So Dr. Google did one thing. Now, mind you, I am never going to stop wanting to see my doctor because he has practical experience. All right, answering test questions is not the same as being a good doctor. But what people have to realize, we are in a world of immense shortage in the healthcare system. The forecasts of hundreds of thousands of too few doctors in the world in the coming years. If there are things that a skilled, and I emphasize skilled patient, can do to take some of the burden off the system, it's a good thing.
Yeah. And we always talk about generative AI and the knowledge that it can, produce, basically. But I think within 3 to 4 years, we'll be talking about emotive AI, where not only knowledge will be mimicked, but also emotions will be mimicked. And then we have combination of both. And probably you can imagine that even an AI system has more empathy than maybe a physician.
Well, it can be programmed to
mimic.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I actually use ChatGPT to help me solve a difficult problem in composing this speech. Because what they wanted me to do was take a 45-minute speech and get the message across in 15 minutes.
I know that feeling. They asked me the same thing.
The attention span of audiences these days. Anyway, we were tossing around what could we cut out. I mean, sure, I was talking with ChatGPT and it was saying, well, you could leave this in, but only, it actually said, only if it supports your central thesis. Wow, this is amazing stuff. And I suggested a few things, and what I found, it had too much empathy. It was a suck-up. I would come up with what turned out to be a bad idea, and it would say, that's really smart.
Okay.
This is not what I want. So we've got a lot
for now.
Who knows where it's going to go?
Okay. So my first book was called Healthenthusiasm. Healthenthusiasm is how I describe it, I describe it as the enthusiasm or maybe the aspiration that we all have to be healthy and happy. I think every one of us wants to be healthy and happy. It's one of the things where if I give a keynote, my first question is, who does not want to be healthy and happy? And you see people, of course.
Yeah.
The thing is that in healthcare, we often underestimate that power, the power that people want to be healthy and happy.
Absolutely.
And so if you're talking about autonomy or even just empowering patients, which was your main story for years, obviously, I don't think we pay enough attention to that. And that's what I want to bring as well with the health enthusiasm story. Say like, look, you can't say that patients are not engaged anymore. If they're not engaged, it's because your solution sucks.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry to break your heart, but I don't like your medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you're dead on. My primary care physician, this great guy named Danny Sands, he wears a button on his jacket in clinic that says, "What matters to you?"
Yeah.
Because he likes to work with me to achieve my goals, which is part of the reason why I like him, as opposed to him just saying, you ought to get off your ass more. And
it's pretty funny that you say this, because my first book was called Health Enthusiasm, and the subtitle was Making Customers Healthy and Happy. I used customers because I didn't want to use patients, but whatever.
So it's okay.
Making customers healthy and happy. And then companies came to me and they said, we agree that we need to do that because this is important, but what does it mean, healthy and happy? I mean, this is so fluffy. And so my second book, I needed to, answer that question.
Good.
And exactly what you said was a question, what is important to you? Is that what your physician asks?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's exactly what I was looking for in my second book. So I identified a couple of things that are important for all of us. In some parts of our life, a little bit more one thing than the other, but it could be like, I want to have more energy.
Yes, exactly.
I want to have less stress. I want to heal. I want to develop myself. I want to do nothing. I want to enjoy myself. I want to accept the fact that I'm sick, maybe, because that's one of the things that we need to do.
Yes, I want to be at peace with
exactly.
the idea that I'm sick, and it's okay.
And that's what I call life aspirations. And I think we all have some sort of aspirations in our life. And I'm not talking about aspirations in making more money whatsoever, but like really aspirations that are tied to your proper life, your health and happiness.
I'm really glad you're talking about that, because the whole idea of compliance, or even if you call it adherence or whatever, the idea there is, all right, we got some evidence that if you do this, 60% of people get better on a particular timeline, which means it's evidence-based medicine. Sure, yeah, 40% don't, but still, what if it's not my primary objective? What if it makes my life miserable?
Exactly.
And what people are fundamentally after is the things that are way down deep at the base of the brain.
Exactly.
And it's giving people the space to want what they want instead of telling them they're wrong.
Yeah, it's like very often you see this communication to cancer patients saying like, you need to fight, you are a warrior, those kind of communications. And I think in lots of cases, patients haven't even accepted the fact that they're sick. And maybe that's the first thing they need to do to feel good, or at least less bad, let's put it that way.
So that, you happen to just put your finger, and we didn't talk about this before, but when I was dying, because I was, at diagnosis, my median survival was 24 weeks. I was like really sick, this disease had come out of nowhere. And I was doing everything in my mind's power to deal with it. And part of that was I did not want to use up all my energy fighting.
Yeah.
And my sister has done a lot of personal transformation work. And she said, Dave, you might want to think about something here. People talk about fighting their cancer, but consider, who grew this thing that's inside you?
Yourself.
Myself. And I'll tell you, I'm not joking about this. There were times when I was lying in bed, probably dying within a few months, where, that will get your attention, right?
Yeah.
So I'm lying in bed thinking about this, and then I realized I need to rest. And I would literally say, good night, cancer, you'll be there in the morning. And I would let myself sleep. And then I started having this conversation about who grew this thing. And then I found myself saying, well, that was silly. And I got this, it's not like I was denying the cancer, but I got this early immunotherapy, high-dose interleukin-2, that usually didn't work. To make a long story short, nobody can tell whether my mental attitude had anything to do with me surviving.
Obviously.
But I'm damn glad I did, because it's been fun since then.
So tell me, as a final question, I mean, we're here in Berlin, live in Boston. You're not 25 anymore, if I may say so.
I'm 74 and a half.
74 and a half, here we go. So you're not 25 anymore, for sure.
Half a century ago.
Why are you still doing this? Why are you still here? Why are you on a big stage, changing a 45-minute keynote into a 15-minute keynote to... What? Tell me.
I really, ever since I was a hippie in the 1960s, I have wanted to change the world in a good way. And not by shoving anything down anybody's throat, because that's the same thing that people do with failed medicines.
Exactly.
Right? What I do is I try to speak my thinking in a way that helps other people see the world differently. So that as we part, I'll never see them again, they'll never see me again. But they go through life thinking differently. So when new ideas come up, they approach it differently. Like the doctor who said, if a patient has seen a paper that I haven't, then who am I? Well, so you're somebody who has all these additional skills that I don't, just altering how people think about their work. The best praise I have ever gotten after a speech was when an esteemed doctor came up to me and after the speech and said, I never thought of it that way.
Lovely.
Right. And that's what you do. I mean, that's what you're doing.
Well, I was about to say, I mean,
yes.
If I can, it's exactly, we have the same mission.
Yes.
Not the same background in that regard, lucky for me, if I may say so. But it's exactly with enthusiasm, and that's why I call it this enthusiasm. It's a positive word.
Yes.
I want to spread a positive message about how we need to deal with health. Think about all the possibilities that we have, amplify the things that we're already doing really well. And if I do this, I have to be honest, I mean, this is in part because what I saw with you and what you bring. So I'm really...
Well, good. Thanks. See, you became one of what I try to create. People who think differently.
Here you go.
Good
Thank
job.
you very much, Dave. It was very nice talking to you.
And isn't it great to have that effect on the world?
This is what I would love to do, and this is why I coined this term to really have it spread by itself. And I'm not e-patient Christophe, but I try to be high enthusiasm and with the same mission, man. We're on the same mission.
Yeah, that's like they say, right? Be yourself, everyone else is taken. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think that Dave is very passionate, is very charismatic, like bringing those jokes on stage, but really also making the point. And see, one thing that I really liked in his presentation, and he mentioned it briefly just now, is the use of ChatGPT by patient and how that can really make a difference for patients. So he was giving the example of, I think, his own patient record, that you get the notes from open notes. And it's actually quite complex. Us as patient, you read your patient record and you don't really understand what it says. But if you feed it into ChatGPT can just make a simple explanation, 2 bullet points of the main issues with you and your health and what actions you can take. And something that I find very useful that he mentioned. So Dave started a website called patientsuseai.substack.com.
Okay.
And there you can actually see stories of patients who are using ChatGPT. And if you go there, you see, if you enter the first one, it's like a patient with cancer who is using ChatGPT to understand X-ray reports. And they even explain the prompts that you should use to make sense of your medical record. So I think that's amazing because you can really empower patients and give them more autonomy, which was really the topic of his talk. And to better manage their health.
Could you repeat the URL again? What is it so that people can find it?
patientsuseai.substract.com.
Substack.com. Oh, yeah, it's so people write about it and you can discover it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're fully right, and in a sense that we always talked about Dr. Google, and I think, I mean, AI or any of these ChatGPT like AI tools, it will be Dr. Google on steroids for sure. I mean, this will help patients enormously, even physicians, if done rightfully.
But do you remember? I think we talked about it on the pod, this example of a young kid who had some health issues. The parents went to see, I don't remember how many doctors. They couldn't find any diagnostic. The mom put everything on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT find the diagnosis. I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of knowledge in there, and maybe we should use it a little bit more. Definitely in the future, of course. One of the things that I liked was something which is called Healthy Cities, or Cities for Better Health by Novo Nordisk. I unfortunately missed the presentation by Nadim Sarwar, the founder and head of the Transformational Prevention Unit at Novo Nordisk. But I was on the same stage as Jutta Skau, which is the product creator at that same Transformational Prevention Unit. And why did I really like it? It's because Healthy Cities is one of the things that I've been using in my keynotes for almost 10 years. It's been around for 10 years, ever since 2014, but I've been using it as probably ever since it came out. And why do I like it? It's because Healthy Cities, it's actually an initiative by a pharmaceutical company with the aim to create urban spaces that promote well-being and prevent chronic diseases. And so they do so by fostering health equity and accessibility to make sure that people have active lifestyles and all sorts of things. It started in 2014, as I said, and back then it was called Cities Changing Diabetes. Obviously, Novo Nordisk is a very, strong diabetic company ever since, eternity almost. And they started in 5 cities, really trying to bring together local groups, local health experts, city leaders to really address the rising diabetes rates in these cities. Now, 10 years later, it's not just about diabetes anymore. It's really about bringing, I think they have over 40 cities now. And so they try to bring all these cities together into what they call a global network, where people share and collaborate how they can make the cities healthier. Because let's face it, there's a lot of unhealthy people living in cities, probably more than in rural areas, maybe. And very often, people living in cities, they don't always have the possibility to access affordable foods, maybe have safe spaces to do some activity, some sports, maybe do some preventative healthcare whatsoever. And so through these partnerships, what they try to do is they really try to learn from each other and make sure that these cities become healthier, and that they see that these cities can work on prevention, even have some more of equitable health access, if you will, by providing healthy food, safe spaces for activity, again, as I mentioned before, maybe some funding for the community. So I've been a fan of this project for so long. I always thought it was more like a thing that happened at Novo Nordisk, a bit in the margin. But after seeing Jutta speak and after speaking personally with her, I really was amazed by how important this is for a company like Novo Nordisk and how they really live it through. And this is, I think, from a health enthusiasm point of view, I think this is a wonderful health enthusiasm.
And did they deploy it worldwide?
It's worldwide, exactly. So there's multiple countries around the world. I don't know them by heart, but you can find it on the websites. But it's really worldwide, and it's pretty much the major cities in the world, so the really, really big ones, where probably the need is highest. Yeah.
So maybe one other enthusiasm for me that's related to yours, around the same line of healthy cities, is a project done by another pharmaceutical like Novartis Foundation. They launched this program called Cardio for Cities. So it's a project really aimed at improving cardiovascular population health. So what they've been doing, it's collaborating with city authorities to co-design and implement data-driven responses to improve cardiovascular population health. So the health authorities use the power of data to make better decisions for health system and the population, and even using health tech innovations and technologies to make that happen. And they were sharing that they've been implementing this project in 3 cities. So maybe that's why I was asking where those projects were. So for Cardio for Cities, it was in Sao Paulo, so Brazil, in Dakar, Senegal, and Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. And they've been implementing them like over the past 1 to 2 years. So it's still quite recent, but still they said that they've seen like very positive response, really decreasing the rate of hypertension, and also positive effect on stroke and coronary heart disease rates. I think it's also very, very good news, since we know that cardiovascular diseases are one of the main causes of death today. So yeah, amazing to see a project like that.
Yeah, you gotta love it. And I think there was a time as well, going back to my pharmaceutical past, when I was working alongside, or actually in smoking cessation solutions at my previous company. And we also tried to do that. And I have to say, we did succeed partially, working with cities to try to promote smoking cessation. But I have to say, it is a whole lot of work. This sounds so easy to do, but it really, really is not. It's a whole lot of work to make these things happening. So you have to admire what both of these companies here are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great news.
Now, moving away from cities, what I really liked as well, and I know if you've seen it, but if you arrived at the conference, there was a bus on the outside. Did you see the bus?
Yes, exactly.
So like on the square, when you entered the conference, there was a big bus, and I was like, what? It was a bit confused why it was there. And I hardly looked at it I saw the bus, I was confused. I went in, I hardly looked at it. But funnily enough, when I entered the main conference room, it was exactly at the moment where Felix Thielmann, which is the head of marketing at DB Regio Bus, was on stage, and he was explaining Medibus. So the actual bus that I noticed, or not really noticed, but saw a bus at the conference entrance.
So I guess, you missed just the intro of that session, and what they were saying, that it's the bus that brought the Frontiers Half team from Italy to Berlin.
That would have been a tough ride, I guess. But it's pretty funny indeed, because for the people that don't know Medibus, it is a mobile doctor's office that is put onto the market by DB Regio. And DB Regio is part of Deutsche Bahn, which is the German national railway. And so they're mainly focused on regional transport. And what DB Regio normally does, Deutsche Bahn normally does, it provides a local train and bus services to connect rural areas with cities. So making sure that people can get to the services and the jobs that they need to go to, because sometimes, trains don't always get to that spot. Now, what is very amazing here, and what Felix Thielmann here explained, is that they created a bus, which is actually a mobile doctor's office, because we often talk about the healthcare deserts, meaning the places somewhere in a country which lack doctors, which sometimes make it difficult to access medical services. Definitely for elderly who are maybe not as mobile as they used to be. And so the purpose here of that Medibus is to go to these places where there's less medical access, where there's less medical doctors, and actually provide those medical services on the go. So it's a bus that is fully equipped with exam rooms, labs, video conferencing, and so forth, so that really they can offer trusted in-person care anywhere in Germany. They have about 7 of these buses, if I'm correct, who are driving around the 7 states in Germany to provide several different types of medical needs, going from COVID testing back in the days to even vaccinations in general, but also your urgent medical call for a doctor. They even supported the refugees that came from Ukraine at a certain point, who came to the border, who sometimes needed urgent medical care. And I think, again, this is a health enthusiasm, I think, which is really nice, because, Deutsche Bahn is not particularly a healthcare company, let's put it that way, but what they've done here is really exceptional, and I think it's worthwhile checking out Medibus, of course.
But what he was saying that I found very interesting is that they noticed the decrease in use of the buses, and it kind of repurposed those buses for a good cause, to really bring the care to the people in those rural areas. So it's also a nice move on their side.
Yeah, very smart actually. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then little after that, I think it was straight after that presentation by Felix Thielmann and Medibus, we had our own Aditi Joshi on stage, who was moderating a panel that was talking about hybrid care, remote diagnostics, and digital health. As per usual, she did an amazing job. I just love the way that she moderates these things. She's super smart when it comes to telehealth. She wrote a bestseller called Telehealth Success. Did you see the panel?
I did, yeah. So I saw just the beginning. I think that's the issue with Frontiers. There's so many things interesting happening at the same time that you have to choose, and like networking is a big part of the event. But what I like a lot, my key messages from that panel, is that they started by saying that telehealth was not really helping with access to care, and that's what we need, and things really need to evolve, and that those platforms, telehealth platforms, should evolve, like they would become an infrastructure, like the hospitals are today, so being fully part of the healthcare systems, and that it should also become a medical device in the near future. That was a very interesting perspective for me.
Yeah, I liked. There was one person on the panel, I can't remember who it was, who said, simply put, telehealth is not bold enough. They need to be way more bold to make sure that there is more access. It's not just about some technology. You need to be bold and change everything that we are doing. And I think, in a sense, we had Jonathan Bringas Dimitriadis, the CEO of Lapsi Health, also on the panel. And he had just launched a new product. Have you seen the product? Let's not reveal it yet, but have you seen the product? Did he show it to you?
I did, yeah. I tried it. And I also saw the launch. Like, if you have not seen the launch of the product a few weeks ago, you have to go and check it. They did an amazing job.
Yeah, it was an amazing job indeed. So I was really eager to talk to him, to try the device out, but he was really occupied. Everybody who was there actually wanted to see and touch it. And the moment that I actually got to speak to him, his battery of this phone was dead and he couldn't show it to me. It was the end of the day. But on the good side, I had a really nice conversation about this product. And if you're not familiar with the product, this will be very interesting for you as well. Let's listen to what Jonathan Bringas Dimitriadis had to say.
So I'm Jonathan Bringas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lapsi Health. Lapsi Health is a sound and plethysmographic information technology platform that combines hardware and software to develop multiple devices in several ranges of diagnostic opportunities in healthcare.
Yeah, and that's exactly the pitch that you gave me when we were together in Finland.
Yep.
In the cab, we didn't know each other, but I was joining, I think it was at GUT even also back then.
Something like that.
And we got introduced to each other, and I think that was exactly the pitch that you told me back then. And I remember that I had a feeling of, oh yeah, sure, whatever, if I may say so, to be very honest. I mean, I heard a lot of pitches, and everybody presents itself in a certain way. But recently, you just launched your first product. It's like a week ago, I think.
Yes.
So when this comes out, probably it'll be 2-3 weeks, let's say. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that business is serious. Lapsi Health is serious. What you meant was really, really cool. So if just explain to listeners, what have you just launched and why is it so cool?
So we launched Keiku, and Keiku is a wireless digital stethoscope.
Maybe, so Keiku is written as?
Keikku.
Yeah,
yes.
There you go.
And it is basically a digital wireless stethoscope. It basically redefines and redesigns the whole experience of using a stethoscope for the clinician side and for the patient side. We developed a very serious integration of technologies, from sound experience to software platforms to sensor embedded systems strategies, in the architecture of the hardware itself. And what came out from that was a device that is a massive innovation in a space where there has not been a lot of innovation, for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. So we are very excited about where we landed and the launch that we had. I believe it was a very successful launch. We were here in Frontiers Health, and we're getting a lot of those comments from everyone that attended the conference. Hey, I saw your launch. I saw your video. It was really good. I also got some comments from some people saying, I pre-ordered one in the United States for a friend of mine to give him as a birthday, or my brother just ordered one because he's a physician and he just ordered one because he just loved it. So we saw this acceptance of the technology. We're very humbled about the reception, and we're very excited about what is to come. This is only the beginning of a platform technology company that will bring more innovation in very little time. So yeah, I think it has worked beautifully.
Yeah, I think on the one hand, when I saw it, I was like, whoa, this could have been done by Apple. I think we talked about it before today, but I mean, I was so amazed by the presentation and the way that it's built, and it seems very user-friendly. At the same time, I felt like, oh, this is going to cause a problem for a lot of people. And by people, I mean keynote speakers like myself, because the stethoscopes was typically one of the things that we always refer to as being, look, it's been around for so long and they're still using it, so there's not a lot of innovation in that space, etc. And now you just completely swipe that off the table and you come up with a digital wireless plus stethoscope, so which is remarkable. I mean, it's just really nice to see it. It was like the one thing that would never be, innovated, whatever, is just suddenly there in a very cool way. So tell me, so this is, you said it's a platform, you say it's a first product launch. Where is this going? What are the next steps? Because you seem super excited about all of this, but why? Where is this going?
Well, look, we've always believed in signals, and in healthcare we've been using multiple signals. We'll be using images, we'll be using ECG, we'll be using PPG as a signal and sound. And if we would just compare, for instance, the evolution of signals, we compare PPG. PPG was basically explored around 1920, and it's been developed forward towards 1960s to become a pulse oximeter and be implemented in the 90s in healthcare. In 2008, Fitbit comes in with their first product, which used PPG sensors and accelerometers to be able to count steps, calories, and give you a heartbeat and SpO2 information. And from that point onwards, the release of the Apple Watch, the release of the Oura Ring, the release of the Whoop, what we're seeing is that PPG took a route and became one of the strongest signals in the health tech market, delivering to us multiple opportunities for biomarkers. Now, PPG is basically a signal based on light, and it uses a light emitter and a camera.
It's a light that you have on the back of your
It's the light
Apple
that
Watch.
you have in the back of the Apple Watch, yes. And when you look into it and you just look at it from a higher perspective, you think of, okay, what are the biggest forces in the world? Whatever we see, whatever we taste, whatever we smell, and whatever we hear.
The senses.
Right? Yeah. Sound is one of the most important and powerful forces in the world. So it is only logical that sound as a signal should be one of the most important forces in healthcare. And should deliver us multiple opportunities. And if we consider the body as a source of sound and as a fountain of sound, the body delivers sound from the heart, from the lungs, from the intestines. The babies inside of wombs deliver sounds. The joints, the fontanelles of babies deliver sounds. The carotid artery, the trachea, so many places deliver sounds inside of the body. So these sounds usually tell us these stories of healthcare and disease, of health and disease, sorry. So, and let's just see it even from a more macro perspective. When we have sound and it tells me a story or a message which is encoded in that sound, and there's a receiver of that sound, we're talking about a language. So what we believe in Labs Health is that our body has a natural language, and for centuries that natural language has been interpreted exclusively by healthcare professionals with their stethoscopes and completely locked at the point of care. So what Labs wants is, and our perspective is, we want to unlock the potential of this natural language and deploy these insights of health and disease to everyone and everywhere.
So B2C as well. So you want the consumers to be able to do it at some point as well themselves?
Of course. We want to have the healthcare providers to help us bring this technology to the clinic, bring this technology to the patients, allow us to really enhance the healthcare opportunities, and after that, be able to extend the work of clinicians towards patients. We're able to help them to take control of their health. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it goes directly to consumer, but it means that it can go to rural places. It means that it can go in the form of wearables to the farthest corners of the world where there's very little access, and you can still be able to use that opportunity in your day-to-day healthcare. And to do that, there's a pipeline of wearable devices that come after the Keiku. So we are excited about what the opportunity of signal processing means to us, and what are all these undiscovered secrets of sound that we can start to bring to patients in the next couple of years.
Secret of sound, the fountain of sound. I mean, you really thought about it. It's really good stuff. The reason why I was asking the consumer question is indeed because a lot of the things start with the medical professional, let's say, but more and more we see that patients also want to have an understanding or listen to. I mean, I was thinking about one concrete example. My son had RSV at a very young age, so he was just coughing very loudly in winter, and it can go from within a couple of hours he could be, in medical urgency in the hospital, and so we needed to go to a physician every day almost to have him or her listen to my son. So it would be great if we could have this alert system also at home, for example. And then,
of course,
and I'm sure I'm not the only one, and this is not the only use case, but there's different use cases and interests, I believe, from people that want to have these kind of sounds. So one thing that I haven't captured 100% yet, I guess, or fully yet, is the platform. What is the platform? The platform is the intelligence, you mean, that is related to the sound?
No, the hardware as well. So every single device has the same proprietary hardware. So we have created a hardware architecture that which is the one that is inside of Keiku,
okay,
which is already patented.
Okay.
And this hardware architecture can span multiple wearables in the future. So the form factor of Keiku is intended and intentionally made like this to resemble a stethoscope, but inside is a very flat printed circuit board. And it has multiple sensors inside, and it has a specific embedded systems strategy inside of it. So that core can be evolved into multiple wearables in the future, and that creates a platform.
Yeah.
And that, of course, also is related to the software and is related to the AI.
So does that mean that you can basically sell that platform B2B as well to the Apples and Samsungs of these worlds, or is that not part of the plan yet?
I wouldn't add it in the plan yet.
First at first.
These conversations are very, very, very tough, to discuss because we're not in that space yet. But we can definitely see how this approach would actually benefit so many. And then at that point, we're going to see where the company goes. But we're very, very interested right now in focusing on the multiple aspects of sound and the potential that sound has in the diagnostics and monitoring of diseases. And then how will it be received by the medical community? We believe that our first step into the market has been the right one. We see a lot of enthusiasm. Health enthusiasm.
Yes, thank you.
a lot of enthusiasm, by the medical community professionals that really want to use this technology. We've had a very successful beta test in the United States and in Europe, where multiple professionals, whether they are nurses or PAs or physicians, have already been using the technology with amazing feedback. So we only expect that this is going to be something that they won't only use for to enhance their clinical work, but also they will use to ease their days and maybe add a little bit of delight into their work.
Coolness, true. Very nice. Maybe final question, where could people find information on Keiku?
You can go to Keiku, so it's KEIKKU.health.
.health.
Yes.
Okay. Well, for all the ones that are interested in the first digital wireless stethoscope, go to keiku.health. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much.
So I think if you listen to this interview and if you now understand what it is, this digital wireless stethoscope, I don't know, I get super excited by it. I mean, the launch was amazing. The product looks like an Apple product. But beyond that, I think this product is, to me, nothing less than legendary. Because think about it, Aline, how do we present a physician? If you'd look up on Shutterstock or if you look at the emoji, if you look at an emoji of a doctor,
yes.
it is with a stethoscope, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's just throw it all away, because this is done for. I mean, the stethoscope is out. We have something entirely new, so we need to invent a new emoji of a doctor.
Exactly, that's true. And also something that I really like that Jonathan mentioned, how it can impact the way you teach medical students, because with this solution, so you can just scan the QR code of like the teacher, and all the students through their own headsets can hear the same as the teacher. And I think that's also revolutionizing in terms of training.
Yeah, I think so too. And I know I'm on a limp here, because I know it's not his primary focus, and I don't want to make any confusion. But in certain ways, I think if you think about it, so I think somebody said in the panel that we all need to be our own doctor, because in the future nobody is going to do it for you. Definitely not doctors, because they don't have the time. And so if you extrapolate this product into the future, you could even imagine that maybe we have it at our own home, and maybe we could use this own stethoscope and have it analyzed with an AI as well. And I know I'm going way too far. I don't want to. This is not the purpose of Lapsy Health in the first years, definitely. But I really think it's something which is so remarkable. It is a game changer in the healthcare sphere. It changes the image of healthcare, even.
No, absolutely.
That
maybe to your point, so I tried the solution, and I think it's very impressive to listen to your heart, to the person's heart in front of you. But I wouldn't know what to do with that information. So yes, I think to your point, maybe in a few years, AI can be here to translate, make sense of that information at home. But for now, it's a device for medical professionals.
Well, basically, to your point, the first point that you made, ChatGPT and patients. I mean, ChatGPT could actually interpret in the next couple of years, definitely, maybe easily even certain of these sounds. Did you see the presentation of Peter Onimis from Dakadu?
I did, yeah.
I liked it. I really liked it. I have to say, I've known Dakadu for a while. For those who don't know him, it's a health tech company from Switzerland. They create digital health solutions like so many others, I would say, but with the very specific purpose to engage users and improve their well-being. The thing is that their vision, at least, is that it's very hard to engage people in health management, to encourage them to have healthier lifestyles, etc. And so what they do is they use a health score to show you where you are. It's a way of tracking. And I have to say, I was on stage 10 years ago at the Global Health Insurance Conference, also in Berlin, I think it was. Berlin or Vienna, I can't remember. And they were on stage with me, on the same stage. And I talked to the COO back then. And I was a little bit puzzled by this score thing. Because remember, Mobile Health 2014, there were a lot of new tools that came out. They all had their own score. Even Nike had their own score with the fewer points, for example. So I wasn't so sure whether they would survive or whether it would be something which is very nice. But a couple of things. One is that it's still around. It has millions of users. And it seemed to be doing really, really well. And I think there's a couple of things that made it a success. One is, I think I was very charmed by Peter's Onimis vision on what he tries to do with business, right? He said, I made my money. I sold my first company. I basically don't need to work anymore, but I want to make a difference. And so here I am. I really want to change, the healthcare system. I really want to make sure that people feel healthier. He also has 2-3 other companies around sustainability who has the same kind of noble, altruistic type of mission. And it really sounded sincere. And I think the way that he approached healthcare with Dakadu was nice. He said, and it was a very bold statement, but I loved it. I even wrote it down. He said, the healthcare system is still the same as it was post-World War II. And if we keep it still the same for the next, let's say, another 70, 80 years, we will not do good. Basically, he claims that the healthcare system is not going to survive. And I fully agree with it. But he said it in such a beautiful words. And so he claims that with his tool, that with the score, etc., that he can help people. He compared the Dakadu with car navigations. So he wanted to make lifestyle navigations as easy as car navigations. And next to the health scoring, he added some gamification, some AI, of course, to make sure that wellness becomes interactive and engaging. And so his clients are health providers and employers, but also banks, insurers, and retailers. So that's based on all of these informations that you get from your specific, client, your specific person that is using the Dakadu. You can actually launch new products, insurance products or other products, or you can help them be rewarded for healthy habits. And so I think I was very skeptical of Dakadu, but somehow, the charm of Peter Onimus and the way that he presented things and the fact that they're still around, the fact that they are increasing with 62% every month of every year, I think it is massive. I mean, this is. I was really impressed by his down to earth but very clear vision on the future.
He's a very passionate entrepreneur. Yeah, he's been around with the same energy on stage for many years. And what I'm really impressed by them is how they really managed to do partnership with insurance companies. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not easy.
It's not
moving
easy.
Also towards the prevention and getting the insurance companies on board.
Yeah, I just loved it. Love the digital health tool. Now, if you talk about digital health, there's one guy that really follows digital health really closely. Definitely digital health related to pharmaceutical companies, and that is Gary Monk.
That was interviewing Peter on stage, right?
And that was interviewing Peter on stage, indeed, which is not a coincidence. And I actually never met Gary Monk. This was the first time. Did you meet him before?
No, same for me. Like, we've been in touch on LinkedIn for many years, but it's the first time we met in person. Yeah. He's a very fun guy.
He's a very super down-to-earth guy. He lives in Lisbon right now. English, I think he's from the UK somewhere. Yeah. But he's very smart, and he keeps track of everything that is happening in digital health. And I also had an interview with him that we can listen to right now.
Great. So lovely to see you, Christophe. So yeah, Gary Monk. What do? I love digital health, so it's all aspects of it. I know it's a very, very broad area. That's why the conference has been perfect for me, particularly interested in things like artificial intelligence, how that's practically applied, and digital therapeutics, as well as those sort of predictive diagnostics and trying to moving to that earlier in that prevention journey to kind of catch diseases right at the beginning or maybe even before they've begun.
Yeah, wonderful. And so did you see anything during the conference that really sparked your interest in that particular matter where you say, oh, this is nice to hear, or this is very promising, or I'm looking forward to that?
A couple of things around the digital therapeutics. I think David from Click, it was interesting to see that future of digital therapeutics, where that kind of vision where every drug, every pill, every treatment will have software wrapped around it, and maybe patients are using software and apps for treatments even when they're not using a drug. So I think that was good. I had some concerns about that as well. It sounds great, but do we create some dystopia where we've got like 20 different apps and struggling to manage them? Where does all the data go? So not to get negative, but there's some practical considerations with that. But I think it's a great vision that software can be a real treatment for disease as part of the solution, or maybe in some cases all of the solutions. That was inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about it for quite a while that this would happen, and we start seeing things shifting in that way. So I'm really looking forward to actually seeing it happen, because I really believe that, well, I hope at least that the technology part would be cheaper than the chemical parts, and so we might be able to help maybe even more people faster, more easier, I think. So would that be also your expectations?
Yeah, it's good, because I think the great thing about software, while it's not always perfect, the fact is it can be updated so quickly, we can learn from it. Obviously drugs, when a drug's out there, and if you want to redesign it, takes time. Years and years and years. You still need approval when you're updating apps, but it can be a lot much quicker cycle. I did have a thought as well about often software isn't enough. There is some limits. Hardware is important. Maybe you need it to be connected to sensors. I used an example of, I think, MedRhythms. There's plenty of other companies out there, but they specifically are using different sensors as well as software to help rehabilitate patients who've had a stroke. So I think maybe there's a missed opportunity with hardware, but I also get you can't throw hardware at everything, and then it adds another dimension of trying to keep people updated. It's so easy with an app, software. whereas hardware is a bit tougher to scale and update. So
to bring it out to the market, it takes a little bit more time as well. So I think we first see a wave of software followed by a wave of hardware, probably.
I think we'll start to see more integration of that where it's needed. Maybe in some cases an app is enough. Maybe an app that connects with your other app, so you're going into one place on your phone. But maybe you don't.
That'd be a dream.
Yeah, it would be a dream for sure. But maybe you don't need hardware, or you use the sensors that are on your phone for basic movement. So it depends on the use case, really.
Yeah, you were on stage as well here at Frontiers Health. What was your main message to the crowd?
Yeah, I covered a number of trends, and the one that really for me that I think I've alluded to, but is really exciting is that prediction, getting earlier and getting to the diseases even before they have manifested. Some nice examples around that. One was around at MIT, they've got a tool called Sybil, which basically takes imaging scans, I think it's low dose CT scans, and it can predict cancers 6 years in advance with pretty good accuracy at the moment before doctors could see them.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. We talked about that on the podcast, actually.
Yeah, and that's great. And in my talk, I tried not to get too bogged down with it, but I think it's fascinating that it's a really good use case of AI where it can complement a doctor. Maybe a doctor can't see something in a scan, the AI sees it, and then that patient can have more regular follow-up. And if you do end up with a false positive, the patient never goes on to develop the cancer. They've had some more regular follow-up, low-dose scans. It's not too invasive for them. So I think it's a really good use case of AI. And if there's a false negative where the cancer's not detected, the doctor wouldn't have detected it anyway. So it can really add to what the doctor's doing.
I think there's two tricky parts with that. I think one is, because I love the example and it would be great. And I think even we see more and more retail clinics going into that sphere. I mean, we talk about Neko Health from the Spotify founder, tries to have this early detections as well. I think one of the challenges, or two challenges, are we going to scan everybody, which is basically impossible. So how we will deal with it with a health industry that's already, very much overloaded. And the second thing would be, can the industry actually manage all these new, diagnoses that otherwise wouldn't have happened? And we're already with we're having an infarctus in the industry already. So, although I love this example, I'm sometimes find it hard to see where this would actually fit in the current model, basically.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I think that example for me, it doesn't fit perfectly, but it fits better than some. And what I mean by that is these patients that have these scans initially, they would be routine scans, so you wouldn't be getting people lining up. But within that, AI's got a higher chance of detecting, could there be future issues?
I see.
So you do repeat scans, that's going to be resource intensive to some degree, but it's going to be better off than treating the cancer that would come for the patient and the healthcare system. But I agree, there's other examples where we've got lots of devices now that can detect atrial fibrillation, and it's like a lot more people have it, and what do we do with it? Do we give everyone blood thinners? Does the system get overwhelmed? Is it periodical AF? Do we need to treat it? So I think some of that is we have all this data, diagnosis, but what happens at the end of it? So I agree, it is an issue, and we're not kind of there yet.
Well, we need some more solutions there for sure, then, to manage these first influx of new patients diagnosed. Any other messages that you want to convey to the audience, or that you conveyed this afternoon to the audience?
Yeah, the other one that stood out, we're seeing a big rise in the physician co-pilot. So essentially tools, I won't name them all, there's so many out there, but that will help clinicians with their admin. They can reduce admin time significantly, which sounds very boring, but not if you're a physician and you're on the verge of burning out, and you can save time, have more time with your patients. So we're seeing that already. What we're starting to see with some of these large language models is more clinical interventions where they'll get more predictive, give more advice on treatments, diagnoses. So that's starting to happen. So I think we'll see that trend move forward, but obviously it needs more adoption from doctors. Probably haven't got time to go into it now, but obviously whether these models are going to be more explainable for doctors to build trust in them. But I certainly think we'll see that move in. So we'll have these co-pilots that, as well as saving time, are potentially saving lives as well, and improving the patient experience. So that's something to look forward to, but it still needs to be integrated within this system.
Yeah, lovely. And I think it's very much needed, because physicians want to work with their patients and less with their computers. So if we could automate a lot of things there, I think that's definitely a win-win. Question is, and I'm challenging you again, is that how can we make sure that this gets into the system? Because many of these solutions are out there, let's put it that way. So how can we make sure that it happens, and that who's responsible to get it in? Or is it physicians that need to take it up? Is it the hospitals? Is it pharmaceutical companies? Do startups have the leverage to actually make sure that it is implemented quicker in a way, the existing solutions? Or how can we make sure that we get this speed? We need to get up to speed with all these things.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And not to evade the question, obviously it will depend on the different solutions, but you think of some of these co-pilots, part of that is getting the hospital systems, the providers to put that in, but also then providing training to their staff, the clinicians, staff to use it, change management, providing trust in these systems, and then rolling it out enough. I don't like to say the word pilot because it's hopefully bigger than that, but rolling it successfully across health systems and then scaling into other health systems. But we've got the whole challenge of there'll be different change management issues, different integration issues. But I think once we start to see, which we started to see now, some real successes, I think we will see that rolling out further.
I think one of the things I always give when I'm talking to startups is that it's good that you have a solution that helps the physician gaining time over time, by implementing these co-pilots, as you call them. The question is, it takes sometimes time to implement them. So one of the things that we need to solve, and that startups definitely need to solve, I think, is how can you make sure that almost from the get-go, from day zero, that these solutions are a help and that they don't need to overcome these first couple of weeks of implementation, and that they need to invest too much time to actually get there, because physicians really don't have a lot of time to do it, right?
No, it's a great point. I mean, I remember speaking to many physicians in the past, and the sort of almost stress levels of I don't have time to learn, I don't have time to do this, I'm too busy with admin and patients. So I think you're right. It's making it as easy as possible, which is easier said than done, to get these things embedded and launched, and having that support from the healthcare system, and also a motivation that there may be more pain for the healthcare professional up front, but convincing them that it's worth that to end up reducing their pain going forward with the admin side. So
I agree, and realizing that maybe it might not only make their lives better, but even make them gain a lot more money in the future, because very often the investment of time that they need to put in doesn't really pay back financially, right? So they have to work more, but it doesn't impact their revenue stream specifically, and that's why many of them are less interested, I guess.
Exactly. I think if you can have small wins with a system where maybe a physician can use one aspect of it to follow up and summarize patient notes or referral letters, maybe the tool's got a lot more potential than that, but they start to see the benefit and gradually use it more and more, rather than expecting them to use it to its full potential straight away.
Great. Well, thank you for this conversation, Gary. Where can people find you?
So I always say LinkedIn.
Definitely LinkedIn, because you post a lot of great stuff up there.
So I should be fairly easy to find. Hopefully your audience will be second-degree connections, at least, if not connected, will be. So just Gary Monk should be able to find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, go follow Gary Monk. So here you go, Gary Monk. I shared the same stage with him. He was, I presented in the afternoon on the second day. He was like a couple of slots behind me, where he basically explained the same thing, but then with images, categorizing all the different digital health solutions that are out there. Very smart man. Anything you like particularly about the conversation, or about what he views as the future of digital health?
Well, I really like his mention to David from Click Therapeutics, who coined that new term at the conference, the software enhanced drug. For me, I'm very passionate about digital therapeutics, and I think it's just kind of the next step of what I would call like drug plus, and how softwares and apps are going to really play an essential role with drugs in the future to accompany the drugs and to help patients maybe be more adherent, etc. So that was one of my highlights of the conference.
Well, when I hear the word software enhanced drugs, it immediately did something with my brain, and I was wondering, I'm not quite sure if it makes sense, but my brain works this way, whether there will be a future where we will have drug enhanced software. Because if you think about it, software enhanced drugs is like software is the add-on to the drug.
Yeah.
But could we have a future where maybe the first solution will be a software, and then the drug will be added on when necessary? I don't know. It was just a brain thing that's happening.
For me, it's like the small pills, like you've got some pills on the market with a sensor in the pill. And when you swallow them, you can actually see when the pill is digested. So for me, it's like the software is like inside your body and gives you useful information. Yeah. About
I once saw a presentation by IMEC, a Belgian company, who it was, I can't remember, and I should be careful in using the wrong terms here, but it was nanotechnology that goes into your bloodstreams. And basically they're small laboratories. And what it does, it analyzes the cells that go through this nanotechnology. And it basically analyzes whether or not you're at risk of developing cancer, already are developing cancer. So it's basically a small laboratory that can analyze this and transmit this information outside of your body, but at the same time kill the different cells that might have the potential to develop cancer. So there's a lot happening. I saw this presentation, I think 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm really curious to know where this is now, but it is something which is happening already.
Amazing things coming for sure. Yeah.
Sticking to pharma, because we talked about digital health and pharmaceutical companies a bit. You also had one last one that you wanted to share specifically related to pharma.
It's the direct-to-patient model. So we know that Lilly and Pfizer launched a program where they can actually sell drugs directly to patients. So Lilly Direct and Pfizer for all. And the panel discussion at Frontiers was really about, is this really a game changer model? So I was a bit not sure about that panel, because we know that this is really linked to countries, right? So you can sell drugs directly to patients. In the US, you can't do that in Europe. So there's already a geographic impact. But what's actually interesting is that just a few days after the conference, Gary Monk shared an article on LinkedIn where it was saying that those two companies, Lilly and Pfizer, were being analyzed on those two services, and the authorities in the US were wondering if there was no bias from those pharma companies to prescribe those drugs directly to patients. So the idea is that you connect to the platform, you can have like discounted access to drugs, but drugs from those companies. So I think it was very interesting. And the discussion was really around like focusing on the patient, that we need to change the models to make them around the patient, and that patients want to have Amazon-like experience. And I think we've discussed that before. And you want to help the patient to understand that this is better, to have a more holistic view. But personally, I'm a bit skeptical about those type of models from pharma companies.
Yeah, I don't know. I first of all, I think it's in the States it might work, because there might be some need for it. Because if you see that Uber Health is doing pretty much the same thing, Amazon is going down that same path, so why not a pharmaceutical company? I think I do agree with you, and it was also one of the quotes that I've liked maybe the most when I looked at the quotes that I've written down. That was, patients wants to be serviced as a consumer. Health is so important to them. We have a ton of experiences throughout our lives that we love a lot. So we expect the same experience when we enter the healthcare system. And maybe that direct-to-patient model can help. Maybe we'll see. I mean, we've seen these direct-to-patient models in the past a little bit. Didn't always survive in the right way. So let's see how that will evolve. So yeah, I think that's it for my health enthusiasms and recap of the Frontiers Health Conference. Will you go back next year?
Absolutely. So the good news is that it's going to be back in Berlin in the same venue. And I really like the venue. I think it worked very well for networking and for meeting people. So it's 11 and 12 of November, 2025. So see you there.
Cool. Yeah, sure. And I think, as you say, Berlin, there is something about Berlin that matches really well Frontiers Health. Like this edgy kind of thing, this new vibrant kind of vibe. It just fits really well, I have to say. So I'm happy it's back there again.
Yeah, the conference started there. So for me, it was like back to the roots where it belongs. So yeah.
Well, very good. Thank you, Aline, for all these health enthusiasms. And thank you for suggesting me to go to Frontiers Health. Thank you for Frontiers Health for inviting both of us. Because yes, it is a health enthusiasm world indeed. So many positive changes are making our world a little healthier and happier every day. Thank you for listening. If you liked this show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. You can also visit healthusiasm.com to discover the other episodes, subscribe to the newsletter, and learn more about our panelists. Thank you, Aline Noizet, for this lovely conversation. My name is Christophe Jauquet. We are the Healthusiasm panel, and we'd love to see you again next week for some more Healthusiasm. Ciao.